In 1877, I sat down and wrote one sentence to explain why I built the thing I am remembered for. It is the only defense I ever offered, and people have been quoting it for 150 years as though it settled the matter. Here it is. That if I could invent a machine, a gun, which could, by rapidity of fire, enable one man to do as much battle duty as 100, it would, to a great extent, supersede the necessity of large armies, and consequently exposure to battle and disease be greatly diminished. Read it again slowly, because it is not one claim. It is three, stacked. One man will replace 100. Therefore armies will get smaller. Therefore fewer men will die. I was a physician by training. I knew how to take a history, examine a patient, weigh the possibilities, and commit to a finding. So let us do that here. Let us treat those three claims the way I was taught to treat a complaint. Not as a story to be told, but as a case to be worked up. The patient is a sentence. I wrote it, and I am not sure it survives the examination. Take the history first, because it explains the vocabulary. I was born in Hartford County, North Carolina, in 1818, on a farm, to a father who held patents of his own for machines that thinned and sewed cotton. I grew up believing that a difficult job was simply a job nobody had yet built the right machine for. That belief never left me, and it is the key to everything that follows. My first patents had nothing to do with any war. A screw propeller, a rice-sowing machine, a wheat drill, a device for putting seed in the ground faster and more evenly than a man could by hand. I was, in the plainest sense, in the business of replacing labor with mechanism, and I was in that business a full 18 years before I ever thought about a gun. Then, in the winter of 1845, I was traveling by riverboat, and I caught smallpox. I could not reach a doctor for 2 weeks. I lay in a cabin with a disease that kills roughly 3 in 10 of the people it takes, and no one came. When I recovered, I enrolled in medical school, Indiana first, then the Ohio Medical College, and I took my diploma in 1850. I never practiced. Not in any public capacity, not for a fee, not once. I studied medicine so that I would never again be helpless in a room where the only person who could help me was me. Hold that fact. A man who learned medicine specifically because he had been failed by its absence. It is the strongest evidence for my sentence, and I will come back to it. Now, the examination. What was actually built, and when? The war came in 1861, and the first thing I noticed was not the fighting, it was the arithmetic of the hospital tents. Far more men were dying of dysentery and typhoid and infection than were being shot. That is not sentiment, it is the recorded pattern of that war. Sickness outkilled combat by a wide margin. So I built a machine to reduce the number of men who had to be standing in a camp at all. Patent number 36,836, granted the 4th of November, 1862. It had already been tested that July in Indianapolis, at the direction of Governor Morton, and the examining board reported that it could discharge as rapidly as 150 times a minute. That is the finding at first examination, one device, 150 times a minute, a rate that made every assumption about how many men you needed to hold a position wrong. But note the date carefully, because it matters more than the number. November 1862. The war ran until April 1865. 2.5 years in which the thing existed, was patented, was demonstrated, was written about, and was almost entirely absent from it. The United States Army did not adopt my gun during the war it was invented for. General Benjamin Butler bought 12 of them with his own money, at $1,000 apiece, after watching a demonstration. 2 of those are said to have gone to the Petersburg lines in 1864 and 8 to gunboats. Said to have. Butler was a man who advertised his own achievements at every opportunity, and he never once bragged about this one, which historians of the period have found telling. There is no securely verifiable record of my gun in Civil War combat at all. So, 3 possible readings of my sentence. Weigh them. First, that I meant it. The smallpox supports it. The seed drill supports it. A man whose entire working life was spent replacing hands with mechanism would naturally reach for that idea and would naturally believe it applied to a battlefield. Nothing in my record suggests I enjoyed killing. I never served. I never sold to the Confederacy, though I was born in North Carolina and had 2 brothers in the South. Second, that I was selling. The letter is dated 1877, that is 15 years after the patent, and by 1877 the gun was in the hands of the United States Army, of Britain, of Russia, and I was a wealthy man defending a fortune. A man explaining his motives 15 years after the fact, in writing, to be read by others, is not a neutral witness. I would not have accepted that testimony from a patient's patient. Pink, unless you said he would not have accepted that testimony from a patient, you should not accept it from me. Third, and this is the one that is hardest to say, that I meant it and it was still false. That sincerity and error are not opposites. That I could have believed every word and been comprehensively wrong about how the world would use what I had made. There is one more charge in the file, and it should be stated rather than hidden. During the war, I was accused of belonging to a Southern sympathizing secret society, the Knights of the Golden Circle, or the Order of American Knights. My name was linked to Vallandigham's. It was a whispering campaign, most likely from commercial rivals. It was never substantiated, and no charge was ever brought. But it was in the air while I was trying to sell the government a gun, and it is part of why nobody bought. The course of the case is where the sentence dies. The Army adopted my gun on the 24th of August, 1866, 16 months after the war ended, and ordered 100. From 1870 they were made at Hartford by Colt. They went to Britain, to Russia, to a dozen armies, and they were used, overwhelmingly, in colonial wars against people who had nothing comparable to fire back with. The machine that was going to make it unnecessary to send 100 men instead made it possible to hold ground against 1,000. Then watch what I did with the rest of my life. In 1893 I patented an electrically driven version. Patent 502,185. 10 barrels. 3,000 rounds a minute. Not fewer. 20 times more than the machine I had justified in 1877, on the grounds that it would reduce the killing. I had 16 years to sit with what my sentence had claimed and what the world had done with the object, and my response was to make it 20 times faster. I died in New York on the 26th of February, 1903. 11 years later, Europe went to war with machine guns descended from mine, and every army that fought it was larger than any army I had ever seen. The finding. Claim 1. One man could do the battle duty of 100. That one held. It was engineering, and the engineering was sound. Claim 2. Therefore, armies would get smaller. False. Armies got larger. Every one of them. The machine did not reduce the number of men required. It raised the value of ground. And raising the value of ground raises the number of men sent to take it. Claim 3. Therefore, fewer men would die. I do not need to argue this one. The error was not in the mechanism. It was in the sentence. I assumed that if a thing became more efficient, less of it would be required. That is true of sowing wheat. It is not true of war, and I had every opportunity to notice the difference and did not take it. I was a doctor who never treated a patient, and I have spent a century being quoted as a man of peace on the strength of a paragraph I wrote about myself. Do not read the paragraph. Read the second patent.